Hello and welcome to another podcast. Field Talk about motorsport. Today is episode 80, and you can see on the screen right now we have an industry spotlight today. We haven't done this in a while, so it should be really fun. I'm expecting this to be one of the top episodes of the year. So I hope you guys are ready. Let's go ahead and get started. Welcome in Colton Cranmore, my always there co-host, myself, Alex Harrington, and our guest, Matt Yost. How's it going, Matt?
Or Yost.
Yost? I've been saying Yost this whole time.
You're not the first one, so no offense taken, man. All good.
Okay. All right. Well, so I tried to fix the intro music to where it wouldn't be so loud, and it seems that the same problem is still occurring. So I don't know if that is StreamYard or what. So I apologize for that. You're muted, Colton.
There we go. I forgot I muted myself.
All right. Sorry about that.
Give me a second. You guys go ahead. I gotta go let Cheyenne in the house because I accidentally took her house key to work.
That's a good way. That's a good way to sleep on the couch tonight. Lock her out of the house. All right. Well, before we get started, I guess what you been up to, Matt, this last week?
Busy week. Had a lot going on. Had a pretty poor race at Dover in the sim racing, but that's to be expected from time to time. But the highlight was I actually got to drive at Dover on Sunday with one of my best friends. We went down and did some Rusty Wallace experience racing, a package we bought for him, and so I jumped in while I was there. Got a chance to get out on the concrete. It was different. I had not run on a concrete surface before, so feeling the car hit the seams a little bit different. It's pretty cool. Then work is work, and that's got to be done to pay the bills. And then you asked me to come and do this, and here we are.
All right. Well, it sounds like you had a really good weekend. So
yeah, it was pretty good.
I mean, what was that experience like? What's it? How fast were you able to go, and were you able to actually, maneuver around cars, or what was the whole experience like?
Yeah, I've based on the profile picture you used, you can see that's NASCAR racing experience. So I have to pay to race cars. They don't pay me to race cars, which I wish it was the other way around. But it's a real well-run program. Both experiences are they have their pros and cons for each, but getting into a race car, seeing it, smelling it, being a part of it, sitting in a car by yourself, getting out on the track. It's something that if you're a race fan, you got to go do. And if you do it, the number one tip is do the ride along. See what a race car feels like before you think you're going to go out there and be the second coming of Dale Sr., Jeff Gordon, Jimmy Johnson, list goes on. So I signed up that day. They extended the discount for being a past member, which was awesome. And went out there. I don't remember how many laps I turned. I think I signed up for 16 or so, and probably ended up turning probably 20, 25. They're real good. If you catch lap traffic, they'll move them left and low, let you pass on the high side. So, and they count those as quote unquote caution laps. So your green flags count, your caution laps, they'll get you back up to speed.
Okay.
And so it's entirely worth it. If everybody participates the same way, you're all going to get your time on track. You're going to get your, whatever experience out of it that you want. Don't feel bad if a car goes by you. That's just the way it is. If you haven't driven a race car before, it's really a different experience from the street or from playing sims, or I guess I can't say play sims. It's play games, right? Race sims, play games.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you're any kind of race fan, there is an experience out there for you to do. There are funny car, there are Top Fuel, there are NASCAR, there is Indy, there is F1. I'm even told. So if it's out there, there's an opportunity for you to go out and be a part of it. I recommend it.
Hell yeah. Well, that's a hard to follow up for what have we been doing all week. I bought the World of Outlaws game, and I've been playing the absolute shit out of it all week. So that's been my racing experience this week. What about you, Colton? What you been up to this week?
Oh, I've been selling quite a bit of stuff on eBay recently, so that's been keeping me busy, packing and shipping out stuff. Other than that, I had a good buddy, one of my best friends, come up and visit me for the weekend. Him and his girlfriend came up, stayed with us. Other than that, just kind of hung out.
Okay, all right. Well,
Nothing too
sounds like we've
exciting.
been all calm and collective,
Yeah.
unlike this weekend in Las Vegas. So let's go ahead and get into woke or joke, and we're gonna go pretty quickly through this one because we got a lot more important stuff to talk about with our guy Matt here. So if I can find, well, okay, I was gonna put the banner up to say woke or joke at the bottom, but I couldn't find it. So we got 6 of these today, 3 from each of the races. First of all, Matt, I'm sure you understand how to do this. It's basically our version of spot on, spot off.
I think I can handle it.
If you like it, say woke. If you don't, say joke and why. And Colton's got us on putting up the banner. Haley Diggin calls her shot for a top 15 in her first Xfinity race and finishes 13th in her Xfinity Series debut. Woke or joke?
I got to go with woke on that one. She's a talent, and besides being a very pleasant person, someone else I got to meet. I think her talent is going to show through a lot more once you get into the full body cars again. The trucks, it seems like, if you go out in the trucks, you're really going to be dependent on the truck you get, right? Or your starting position. More of a beat bang series more than the finesse of Xfinity or Cup. So I think it was a great opportunity for her, and I think that she showed that she's got a lot of driving talent, kept it clean, kept it competitive, and walked away with a real good finish. I mean, top 20 would have been a win in my book for anybody in their first race in the Xfinity Series, and coming away in the top 15 is certainly an achievement.
Yeah, right there with it. Woke, I think, like you said, I think her talent's going to show a lot more in the Xfinity Series where she could drive the car and not have it be so aero dependent like the trucks are, and racing around, people with more respect and, kind of a little bit more finesse themselves and not have to beat and bang so much. So complete woke on it. I think she did great. Can't wait to see her score first top 10 here, hopefully this next season.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with you guys. I don't want to echo your points too much because I agree with them, but I will bring this one up. The 07 car, obviously Cole Custer won in that car earlier this year at Fontana. That was a Stuart Haas prepared car. I do not think Stuart Haas actually prepared the 07 for this weekend. So not only is she taking a Xfinity debut for a 13th place position, she took a car that is probably not a top 10 car and got a 13th with it. So I think I was expecting 15th to 25th, and she outdid my expectations. And all the stuff about the truck series, you guys hit the nail on the head. So I think we can go ahead and skip on to our next one. And that is Josh Berry sweeps Las Vegas in 2022. So woke or joke?
Woke for me. Josh Berry is a shoe. A lot of people that don't follow the grassroots racing, that haven't seen, his accomplishments all through the super late model series and, running across the country on the short tracks, are seeing it now. He's an unbelievable driver, and this opportunity couldn't be better for him. It would be great if the charters weren't $30 million a piece and Junior could afford one, because I think he'd be someone that they'd consider putting up into the Cup Series and showcase his talent even more. But great driver, great shoe, and just he's showing it. It's just awesome. He's getting this chance.
Yeah, 100% woke. I mean, I wish there were Josh Berrys. I wish guys like Doug Kobe, Justin Bonsignor, guys like that got a chance to really showcase their talent in NASCAR. And there was a time when that was possible, but unfortunately, money-wise, it's not so much the case unless you're Josh Berry and you make friends with Dale Jr. on iRacing.
Yeah, so, that's pretty much it.
Woke. I mean, guy's a wheelman. I saw him win last year at Vegas. He's going to be hard to beat there for years to come.
Yeah, we talked about that before we got on. His third straight race that he's done there and third straight win. You can't beat that. And they've definitely not been the fastest of the JRM crews. So coming out there and waxing Noah Gragson's ass is proof to show that Vegas is his house. He might not be a Busch But I think he's more of a hometown hero in Vegas than Noah Gragson is. So yeah, vote for me on that as well. And continuing with the JRM train, the JRM cars run 1, 2, and 3 at Vegas. And for the woke or joke part of this statement, they will lock out the championship 4.
It's it's woke for me. They are, they've been top performing cars all year long. They have top talent, they have top equipment, they have top crews. It's going to be really hard to displace them. They have such a great program, and they're a team. They show that they're a team. Not unlike when you see colleague drivers do well, the entire team celebrates together. JRM celebrates together. It's not the 8 car is our number 1 car. The 9 car is our number 1 car. There's 4 number 1 cars in that stable. So it's going to be hard to displace them from the top 4 spots.
Yeah. Well, technically, there's only one number 1 car in this stable.
Yeah.
Technically.
I don't know. I see Gragson getting in just because of the massive lead he's got. I don't think Allgaier's going to be able to squeeze in. I think it's going to be too competitive for him. If they can, 100% woke. I'd love to see it be done. I just don't know if they'll get there. You're asking a lot.
So you're thinking the statement is joke then?
I would say it's probably joke.
Yeah. I think the statement itself is a joke as well. It's interesting. They could do it coming out and showing out for one race at a track where you've got a driver that has won the last 3 times is not enough for me to say that they can lock out the championship 4. Plus, you got to deal with 2 guys that are just absolute bulldogs in that series, and that's Ty Gibbs and Justin Allgaier, AJ Allmendinger. So I'm thinking that we see Noah Gragson get in, but I don't think that Sam Mayer and Justin Allgaier have the ability to do it this year. So, all right, moving on to Sunday. Let's start with Trackhouse Racing. Phenomenal event from them for the 1 car. However, they gave Suarez this was quoted from TobyChristie.com, the fastest car on Sunday, but he had pit road issues yet again. So pit road issues for Suarez. Walker Joe.
So I agree that's a woke thing for me. That car was bad fast. The 99 was just, and the 1. Each of them, they had a little bit of a lull in the past couple of weeks. I think people got a little tired of Ross kind of having his way, and maybe he took his foot off the gas a little bit figuratively. But the past few weeks, they've really kind of put the pedal back down, and the 99 was going to be hard. I think it was going to be hard to beat if they kept the track position. Unfortunately, lost it on pit road, and we know that you lose track position in a series like that, it's real tough to get it back. You're going to flip the stage. What are you going to do to get yourself back into the conversation, even if you have a car that fast? Managed it well, for as much as he could, but you got to keep that track position. You're going to win and lose, based on your crew's performance. It's a total team effort.
Yeah, 100%. If you're going to be a championship caliber team, we got to clean up the pit road mistakes. However, Daniels drove his ass off these last few weeks too. And if they did give him the fastest car, damn it, if that wasn't the fastest car on the entire track.
Yeah.
Man, he was flying. Joke on the team issues, woke on the speed. Just to echo Matt's point, man, they've been incredible these last couple weeks. Both cars have. I'm really impressed with how fast Trackhouse has moved from a brand new team to legit championship contenders.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go joke as well. I'm not saying this as a biased Suarez fan, but I am saying this as a biased Suarez fan. It seems like this whole year, Ross Chastain has stole the thunder off of that 99 team. Basically built that program up from the ground around Daniel Suarez. And Travis Mack has sprouted into one of the best crew chiefs in the series. And it all comes down to a few mishaps on pit road to keep him out of victory lane 2 or 3 times this year. And he's had the opposite of that golden horseshoe that Jimmy Johnson had for the majority of his career. he found whatever the opposite of that was, and they've been hanging that on the dash every week, it seems. I mean, I don't know. It's a joke. It's frustrating as one of my top 3 drivers to see him constantly outperform Ross Chastain every other week, and then Ross just doesn't have the bad luck. So, yeah, I'll be biased, but yeah, that's where I'm at. Let's move on to our next one, and that is the first 5 races of the playoffs were won by non-playoff drivers, and the last 3 have been, and I may have mistaked that for the first 4 races, so my bad. So I want to know, is this a woke or joke statement? The playoff eligible drivers will lock out the wins for the final 3 races. If it is a joke, then obviously state who's going to take the checkered flag.
Man, that's a tough one. Got to think about that one. So you're saying who's going to be the final 4 championship teams?
Well, no, are the playoff eligible drivers going to lock out the next 3 race wins?
Okay. I see what you're saying. Joke. I think that there's so much parity out there. I think that there's so much hunger to win that you're going to see these teams keep overachieving, and it's not overachieving. It's a quote unquote level playing field of having that car. Now, of course, you're still going to have your top teams performing at the top level. They can afford the talent. They can afford, to find those gray areas where you can get a couple extra horsepower or a couple, advantage points on the aero deal. So that's still going to shine through. But, any given time, you got people making mistakes, get caught up in someone else's bad move, and it can happen. It's not stealing wins. These guys are racing hard, and there's a lot of money on the line, to get to the top spot. There's a lot of pride at stake, a lot of owners' points, and jumping up 1 position in the standings for the end of the year is pretty significantly financially, serious. So no, these guys are, in the other days when you were coasting to the finish line, not anymore. They're pushing hard. So I see non-playoff drivers definitely getting some wins here to finish out the season.
So who and where would you say?
Oh, I think Kyle's hungry. I think the 18 finds victory lane. I definitely think that let's see, who else could we put up there? Man, there's guys that have been close. It's tough to even pick one right now. I would definitely say the 18 is definitely on my radar to get one more win this season.
Okay.
That's probably my number 1 pick that would get a win. And where? Let's see, Homestead. So see if now you can pick Kyle Larson since he's out of the playoffs. So Kyle Larson probably has a good day, bounce back day at Homestead. He's tough to beat there. The momentum's and the high line right up against the wall. He's been doing it. He's been made a career out of doing that. So everybody's got to follow suit. And if you're not comfortable running that wall, you better get comfortable because that's where the speed appears to be. And so yeah, maybe the 5 takes Homestead and Phoenix. That's been a chase track, but he's already, what will he be locked in? I don't know, but that's a tough place to beat the 9.
I think that is the whole playoff drivers will win these next 3 races or 2 races is a joke. I think Tyler Reddick kicks all of the absolute ass at Homestead.
Okay.
I think he is fast there. That 8 team has had so much speed these last few weeks. They just won Texas a few weeks ago. I don't see a reason why they wouldn't be in victory lane this next weekend. If I had money to gamble this weekend, I'm putting $40 on the 8 car.
Okay. All right. I can see that. So for me, this one's hard, right? Because you can say William Byron's definitely probably going to take the cake when it comes to Martinsville. You probably see a Chase or a William Byron or a Denny Hamlin take the championship if they're in the championship 4 by winning the race. Homestead is the weird one for me because you guys have said 8 car, you've said the 5 car, the 18 showed a lot of prowess at the mile and a halves. Toyota in general has been mile and a half cars. We could still see the 45 win this weekend, even though Bubba's not behind the wheel. John Hunter Nemechek could do it. I don't think Ty Gibbs is there, but he could do it. And then the guy that hasn't had a win yet this season, Martin Truex Jr., I think will be the spoiler. So I'm going to have to go joke, and we will not see 3 straight wins from 3 straight playoff eligible drivers. And to finish off Walker joke, this finish at Las Vegas was the best mile and a half / intermediate finish of the year. Walker joke.
Oof. I'm gonna have to go joke on that one. I thought Atlanta was heck of a race, and probably one of my favorite races this year was Nashville at the Super Speedway. That was a heck of a race, I thought personally. So, yeah, joke for me.
Are we counting Darlington as a mile and a half?
Yeah, it's not really an intermediate in my opinion. I mean, it could be.
Say, what about Michigan?
Michigan, yeah, mile and a half, Michigan, Fontana. And I mean, he said Nashville.
We count Fontana too. Yeah, definitely Fontana. Yeah. So yeah, joke.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
I think Fontana was probably one of the better ones this year. Yeah, Michigan was a damn good finish too. But don't get me wrong, this last weekend was definitely up there. Like that was a hard question.
Yeah. I don't like Joey Logano, but I'm gonna have to say woke to this statement. I thought that was the best finish we've had to a race this year on a mile and a half, just because it was
clean.
Kind of that mid-range run. It was clean, and we saw guys with tires be able to defend their position for a little bit. So it was very fun and old school to me to watch. So maybe it wasn't the best finish of the year as far as closest or most action packed.
Yeah.
But for me, it was the most well-rounded. So I would use best in that way.
That makes sense.
All right. Well, that's it for Walker Joke. So let's go ahead and get into the spotlight. So this is kind of a split 50-50 fan spotlight and industry spotlight. So we'll start with the hardest question we ask everybody. And that is, take away the racing, take away your job, whatever. Who is Matt Yost?
A guy that works probably too much to the chagrin of my wife. She could probably stand to see more of me at home. All the things I say I'm going to do that I don't do because I'm always out working places. Full time I work as an engineer for Pratt and Whitney, so that's the pay the bills job. And then I got the Speedway. That's a seasonal Friday night deal. I teach firefighting at the Hartford County Fire School that's over near the airport. And also volunteer as a volunteer for the fire department. So a lot of obligations that keep me busy. I talked and walked my way into New Hampshire last year. It was actually the first time that I worked down there on pit road. But walking is taking the race and stuff away. One of my big passions is actually flying. I'm a licensed pilot. Got my pilot's license back in college, back in like '99, I think it was, that I did that. So haven't flown in a bunch of years. Love to get back into it. Was going to before the pandemic hit. So that's something that I'm looking to to get back into. And got some buddies that are flight instructors. I can get my my reviews done, get my physical done, and hopefully get back up into the air, because it's a surreal experience just being able to, get yourself off the ground, being in a small plane, the views, just the experience of being by yourself in flight it's pretty awesome. So something that, I was pretty proud of back in the day to get that done. There's a rich history in my family of flying. So that was really cool for me to have done in my lifetime.
Okay. I mean, this is exactly why I asked this question, because I had no idea that you had a pilot's license, even though, we race on iRacing together and everything. So it's perfect to bring stuff up like that. So let's go ahead and expound upon that. So how did you get into flying? I mean, you said your family, kind of explain some of that stuff. Kind of give us a I guess, roadmap to how flight is kind of ingrained in your family?
Yeah, sure. My father was in the Army. He serviced airplanes, worked on airfields
Okay.
while he was deployed overseas, Italy. My grandfather, he worked on planes and did a lot of transport flying in the. I'm not even sure which conflict it was, to be honest, but I've always been one of those people that plane flies overhead, and I'll probably stop what I'm saying and look up and watch it fly by. There was a small town airport where I grew up, Ellington Airport, that's popular for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's a very highly regarded helicopter school, and they have a very highly regarded parachuting program. So the very busy little airport, and I couldn't just go outside and see planes, almost all day long, flying, dropping parachutists, and seeing the helicopters fly by. So always had that inkling of flight, and the fascination with being able to just leave the ground,
Yeah.
and all that stuff. So got into college, studying engineering. One of my good friends that became one of my fraternity brothers and my roommate was a pilot and did a lot of flying. Flew Banner tow planes. Is still a pilot. Is actually a captain for Continental, I believe, or United. So he got me involved with a local airport down there, and being an employee, I had time to kind of talk to all the instructors and could ask a bunch of questions, which is kind of in my nature anyway, related to my field. So it was just a natural progression to just work out the financials and start pilot training and flying little Cessna 150s and 152s where my instructor and I couldn't even sit side by side. You kind of had to do the shoulder turn to fit inside the
Well, I
fuselage.
mean, you're a pretty big guy though,
Yeah,
so
I am. Granted, he was much smaller, so once he got tired of sitting this way, you'd switch, and um, yeah. So that was, like I said, that was just amazing to do that accomplishment. That was big for me to see that one through, get my license, and then be able to take up family and friends both down in Florida, and then when I moved back home, being able to rent planes and take people out. It's a whole different experience from when you fly commercially. You're basically in a bus. You see the ground go by really fast on takeoff and landing, but the rest of the time it doesn't feel like you're doing much at all.
yeah.
From this perspective, you can look around, see what's around you, see landmarks. You're not flying as high at times, so um, it puts it into perspective. What it's like to just go up there and get that view and look around, and that's tough to beat.
Okay. Yeah, well, I am kind of envious of you. I've always been really into planes. I don't know how many air shows I've been to in my life, but
Oh
I'm
yeah,
always fascinated by whatever it is. It's not just the demos of like the F-22 or the F-18 or the Blue Angels and stuff. I mean, it's the stunt stuff. Being able to go up and look inside of planes and stuff. Like one of my favorite planes is the C-5, like a little big cargo plane. You can drive Humvees and tanks into it. So. Uh,
So I live in Cheyenne, Wyoming. We have a
okay,
pretty big air base here. There's
sure
always
is.
C-130s and stuff flying around. And I used to work at a Western store downtown, and we got a ton of tourists there. And I used to always tell the tourists that I can tell exactly who's a tourist at any given moment by whether or not they stop and watch the plane. So
Very, very good indicator.
yeah, you mentioned watching the planes. Yeah, you just drown them out living here. But yeah, that was always one thing I thought of.
yeah.
Yeah, I still do it. One of the tracks is on my bucket list is Las Vegas. I couldn't care what happens down in the casinos. I want to go to the racetrack, and I want to go across the street, and I want to watch planes take off at Nellis. And that's really all that I want to do there. I'm fortunate to work, for Pratt. I work in the F-35 engine program, so um, it's they say that if you do a job you love, you don't work a day in your life, and I'm about 50-50 on that. I do love some days and I don't love some days, but working in the industry is cool. It's just awesome to know that something that I have my hands on is something that's out there, protecting our freedom and keeping pilots safe and all that kind of stuff. That's near and dear to me.
How is working for Pratt and are you building the F-35 engines, or are you just doing like what are you doing? Because you just dropped another bomb on me, and now I'm really interested.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. So the easiest way I can describe my job is that way back in the day when you could work on your own cars, you would go to the store and buy the Chilton's manual. And the Chilton's manual would tell you how to literally take your entire car apart and how to put it back together. So my job is to make the Chilton's manual for the F-35 engine. We write the technical data for the crews to overhaul and repair, inspect, overhaul, and repair the engines out in the field.
Wow.
Okay, so that's wild.
Yeah.
I'm like really impressed. I'm sitting here over here. I make water for a living. This dude's putting engines in
Yeah.
I don't
F-35s
live without
basically.
water, man. So we need you.
Yeah, I know. That's crazy. And then we got a fellow government employee under us, a government manufacturing employee.
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah. So I work with Magpul, and we do a lot of stuff with, obviously military and just gun parts and stuff. But nothing as cool as working on or writing a manual for a jet engine. Like that's
Yeah.
Yeah, you
That's
can
cool.
brag sometimes. Like the flyover at New Hampshire this year was the F-35s from Vermont. So in the pit stall I was in, I tapped the guy on the shoulder and said, "Hey, you see those? Yeah, I do the engines for those." And they were kind of like, "Wow, that's impressive." And it's not too brag, but it's just cool to look up and see that, and know that you have some small part of that plane and its operation.
That is wild. That is incredible. That is so cool. Anyway, let's kind of swing back to the racing stuff. So you talked about your family being pilots. You talked about working on planes and stuff. That's obviously a familiar trajectory. It's kind of just what you do. For me, the reason that I got into racing was because my dad worked at racetracks. I worked at racetracks behind him. How did you get into racing?
So my father was owned a race car at Stafford with his buddy Greg, whom has sadly passed. But they had a like a late model sportsman, a Chevy 2 Nova. Probably I'm going to guess back in probably 70, 72 time frame. So they raced there. I think they had like one or two feature wins ever, but it was that. So he was firmly ingrained in racing and had it in his blood. So when I come along, I can remember, and here I go, start dating myself. I can actually remember watching broadcasts of races, and I latched on to Bill Elliott probably in like the 1984, 85 was when I really started to understand racing that was on TV. It wasn't broadcast nearly as with all the fanfare like it has now. Obviously, didn't have the internet and everything back then, but just fascinated with how fast the cars could go, and hearing him tell stories about the days of when he worked at the newspaper and interviewed drivers out of Stafford, and all the names that you hear now, and like when you heard Mike Joy on the download and talking about getting a start, back Riverside Park and Stafford Speedway and stuff like that. So those are, the park, God rest its soul. It's now a roller coaster, but yeah, just, the area, it was rich with short track racing and getting into it, in the early 80s. So like I said, I latched on to Bill. I've been a awesome Bill fan my whole life. The Coors 9 was just so recognizable to me. He wins the championship. That was a big moment. And even later career, he got hooked onto the Dodge deal, and that's the time I started selling cars that I was working for Dodge, and all that promo stuff was kind of happening at the same time. So, yeah, and then video games. Way back when, I'm playing pole position on Atari, and I like that. And then you progress through Nintendo, Super Nintendo, and then into PC gaming and racing and stuff. So if it goes fast and it's it's competitively raced, I'm all for it. Air races, boat races, car races. If it's out there and it's something to get involved in, then I'm a fan. I love the engineering aspect of it. I love the competitive nature of all that stuff. So racing just appeals to me. It's just a lot of fun. It's tough to not, everybody's got their place where they're like truly happy. And I went, when I was in Dover last weekend, we came in the backside, never been on that side of the racetrack, walking across the footbridge. It was just so cool to see a race car shoot underneath you while you're standing there watching it. And yeah, if you don't get goosebumps doing that, there's nothing for you for racing. That's just the best. It's so great.
Yes. I've always wanted to do that, but I've also been lucky enough to be on the flag stand at a bunch of different racetracks
So have you
with my
done that?
dad or by myself. I'm telling you, I mean, I got Colton up there for the Legends cars. He was a little bit sketched out by the very nice flag stand at Atlanta Motor Speedway. But I got to tell you, when there are 26, 28 super late models looking you dead in the eye and you're ready to put the flags up and they hit the loud pedal and you throw that rag in the air, there's not a better feeling. So I know when you're saying standing above a race car coming onto you, oh my God, I love that. Like, you just brought back so many memories for me.
Yeah, I'd be all about the flag stand. I mean, that's, there's what better seat in the house do you have than an overhang over the cars? Like you said, you drop that green flag on the initial start and every single person in that place is on their feet. The energy's as high as it's going to be, and everybody's just mashing the gas under you, and that's just got to be cool. But so there you go. You're jealous of my F-35s. I'm jealous of you being up in the flag stand.
Okay,
yeah, it's fair.
Colton, you got anything for him?
No, you just reminded me. I need to talk to you about lessons because I'm gonna start flagging this next year at the track here in Cheyenne.
Yeah. No, well, that's a really neat. You said a lot about the tracks around you. You said, progressing on the broadcasting side of being able to see more and more races from the 80s and on. I do want to go ahead and ask you if you went to all of those short tracks as a kid, or was that something later in life?
I've been to my dad, even I went with some of my friends to Riverside Park. I had no appreciation then. I was too young to understand, again, all the legends that had rolled through that place and the quality of racing. Now I have to watch it all in archive footage, but it's still super interesting to me to see how they set those cars up for the for that quarter mile. And the guys that were fast there were just blisteringly fast, impressively fast. And money talks, and over time, when Riverside sold out to the Six Flags, and its days were numbered. It wasn't gonna be something for them, and kind of went by the wayside. But Stafford, same thing. I've been to as a kid. I think my first races there were probably in the late '80s. Yeah, definitely the late '80s were the first time that I got to actually be a fan, and that was the first track that I really started to understand. Different types of race cars. At that point, I thought that a Winston Cup was the only thing that raced. That was race cars. When someone said race cars, like someone says soda, and everybody thinks that Coke is soda. Soda is Coke. So race cars were just the Winston Cup then, and I didn't know that there was late models and street stocks and modifieds, and I thought modifieds were the craziest thing ever. I thought they were just looked like race cars that had everything just ripped off them. Some of the cars looked after wrecks on the racetrack. I didn't know that they were purpose built for that. So definitely the late '80s, and then the early '90s was when I really, jumped 2 feet in and was more of a fan myself. Took myself to the racetrack, and then go up to New Hampshire. '94 was the first year of the Cup races. The first Cup race I saw was probably in I want to say '95 or '96. I didn't get to see the first, actually it might've been '92 was the first Cup race in New Hampshire. I'd have to go back and double check that. But, I'd be up there to watch the Xfinity or the Busch races and the modified races there. And you get to see like Cup happy hour. So that was the first time I actually got to see Cup cars in person. And it was hard to describe seeing them for the first time live and coming off pit road and just, hitting the throttle and watching them go around the racetrack. That was you would have thought I was at the race, for practice. I couldn't have been more interested. So and then the addiction was on from there. It's just been it's something that I really enjoy now.
Yeah, I can't fault you for that. I wish I could. I wish I could remember the first time that I went to a NASCAR race. I think probably Colton. You went when? How old were you? 20.
I was 20. It was 23 when I went to my first NASCAR race.
Yeah. So I wish I could, as a functioning brain, have seen my first racing, because I think I would have enjoyed it more. I don't even have memories of my first time at a racetrack. Because I was so young. So I'm kind of envious of you guys, because I think of myself right now as the passion I've got, and just how technically my brain thinks when going to a racetrack. I couldn't imagine being able to use what's in my head right now for the first time, and how just bombarded I would have been by what was going on in front of my eyes. So I think that's really cool, that you got to enjoy it first. I mean, it kind of also sucks that the Northeast didn't have NASCAR races up until the 90s, but it's pretty cool that you got.
Well, I mean, they did. So,
Mm.
there was times that, the Yarboroughs, the Earnhardts, the Pettys, they all competed at tracks like Thompson and Stafford and stuff, like ASA cars and the one-off shows. But I didn't ever go to those. I didn't have an appreciation for guys that would race at the top level and then come and race at the short tracks, more like you see now, which I think that is the greatest thing for promoting the sport, is to get the names to the short tracks and be available. Let fans be a fan. Come and see what you're really like. Showcase your personality. Showcase why they should come and spend their hard-earned money on a race weekend at whatever track across the country.
Yeah, I think we can all agree with that. Apparently, I was almost 2 years old, hollering at Mark Martin for the Busch race in March of 1997. So there you go, guys. I don't remember that, but apparently that was my first race. So I guess moving along inside of kind of your story, when it comes to racing, let's take a little bit of a lighter, I guess, easier track. This is something that we always do. Nathan Ball, our other host, he is a medical student, and this semester has been really rough on him, so he's not been on most of our shows since the beginning of the semester. He always asks the same 5 or 6 questions to every person that comes on here. So it's basically, what are your favorites? So I'm going to go favorite racetrack, favorite paint scheme, and favorite race that you've been to or watched first. And we already know your favorite driver, Bill Elliott, and has that changed?
All time. So favorite track, probably there was a time where I would have said New Hampshire was my favorite track because it was, my local track. But as I've gotten to, in the time that I spent working in pit crews or doing different things, I got to see a lot of different short tracks, and just got the opportunity recently to see Bristol for the first time in my own 2 eyes. So I might have to actually say Bristol. The experience of being there, the people are just unbelievably rabid, passionate race fans. And I'm not saying that other tracks aren't. I'd say New Hampshire probably has the best camping experience probably on the schedule. And I've heard that from other people. That's not a biased opinion, but the way Bristol, just sort of the way it exists, and the way as soon as you step onto the property, not even then, I mean, as you're driving up to it, you see this colossus, massive thing in the distance, and it's a half-mile track. I go to a half-mile track on every Friday, but to see the facility that is around this track and the atmosphere of being there, you've been to racetracks, and you go to the racetrack, it doesn't matter what your demographic is, who you are, everybody's friends at the racetrack because you're all there to do the same thing. You want to watch racing, yell at your least favorite driver, yell for your favorite driver, probably enjoy a bunch of adult beverages, and just detach yourself from reality for a few hours and watch the race cars. The environment, the sound of cars inside Bristol was second to none. Just a natural amplified sound of 40 race cars. With the way the Cups cars sound now, it was totally unreal.
I gotta get out there.
Experience aside, Just being there, being out, I got a chance to go outside and see the start of the race. Walked around the facility a bunch, saw where the drag strip was. Truly an awe-inspiring place. Daytona is a close second because of the rich history of the track. I do love New Hampshire. I love, being up at that Stafford Speedway. But if I had to put one at the top, yeah, I'm going to go Bristol.
All right. What about favorite race that you've been to or watched?
Man,
so if you want to say Bristol this year when you went, we're going to talk about that later in the episode. We could just go with, I guess, what was your favorite NASCAR race you've seen on TV?
I'm trying to think of my favorite. The one that really sticks out was Alan Kulwicki winning the championship. I'll never forget that. I'll never forget, understanding that there's this guy that, he turns his own wrenches. He owns his own team. He calls his own shots. He drives his own race car. Very exacting, very demanding personality. And he goes out there and shows up, all the quote unquote, all the big teams. And, Bill Elliott, I remember winning the championship. I remember, Alan Kulwicki's. So those were probably the two races that, if I really go, and I've seen so many in person. I've seen so many on TV. Tony Stewart winning the championship was at an interesting point in my life where things were kind of down. I am a big Tony fan. And when he took it to the rest of the field and just won all those races in a row, and, him and Carl battling really right down to the 1-2 finish, after taking damage earlier in the race at Homestead. That's top 5 too for me all time.
Okay, I gotta stop you right there, and I gotta say, for anybody who's at NASCAR listening, notice the two races that he said were when points formats were not crazy. They came down to the wire naturally, and we say it every single episode on this podcast. But I want you to hear it from a guy who's been watching for way longer than any of us. 92 and 2011 were two of his top 5 favorite races.
Yeah.
That's all I got to say. Excuse me. Bye. You can continue, Matt.
Yeah. So favorite scheme. This is kind of interesting one. I've always liked what Dale Jr. did with his cars. I liked that, he wasn't happy unless all the details were perfect. The side skirts had to be painted and, all that kind of stuff. But my all-time favorite scheme is actually the 2003 Daytona car, the Dirty Mo Posse 8 car. That was one of the first times that you didn't see corporate sponsors all over the thing. Put some flames on it, put the DMP logo on on essentially what the B pillar, and went out and absolutely just crushed the field in that race. And he was the Pied Piper of Daytona, but that car is just, it was clean, it was cool. It was his own deal, his own idea. I think that's one of the most awesome things of all time. And, poof, all these years later, it turns into, Dirty Mo Media. So there was some small significance of that car translating into, his media company later on in his life and his career. So that's it. The 8 DMP car.
Yeah.
Put you right over there in the stack.
I think we've asked that question dozens of times, and I think that's the first time I've ever even had that car being brought up on this podcast.
Yeah.
Love that car.
If I were to give you a magic ticket right now and any NASCAR race of all time, you watched it, you've been there, whatever, any NASCAR race of all time, and it really didn't even have to be NASCAR, I guess. Which race are you going to?
Ooh. Across all series, across the world?
Any one race you want to go to. Doesn't have to be NASCAR, I guess.
Oh, man. Well, I got to cut that ticket into 3 because I got to go to Monaco to see the F1. I got to go to Indy to see the 500. And I have been to Daytona to see the 500. So, all right, cut the ticket in 2. Let me go see the Indy 500 and Monaco one time for F1.
What's one all-time race? If you go back in time to see one, what would it be?
Man, that's a tough question too.
I feel like the Indy and Monaco were gimmies.
Of course, they're gimmies. They're two of the most crown jewel races in the world.
Right.
One that I could go back to. I was not prepared for that one.
Yeah.
Didn't have
So
to
like
think.
mine is always the 2004 Ford 400 where Kurt Busch's wheel came off. Like I'd love to go back and just see that.
One that another Northeast guy that we kind of hold our Northeast guys near and dear. I'd like to go back and see the Darlington race with Craven and Kurt Busch beating to the line.
Okay.
That was that's another one of those defining moments that one of the closest finishes of all time. A Northeast guy and then the guy with the worst attitude in the garage, back in the day, beating and banging, but they got out of that car high five and couldn't have been happier the way that race ended for either of them. For Ricky, that was a really big win, defining moment in his career. And, it took literally the page out of Days of Thunder. We all know as race fans that races don't look like Days of Thunder they have lately, but but they don't always end like Days of Thunder. That race did. The cars were beat up, smoking, sparking, banging their way off the corner all the way to the stripe, and that was just all-time cool. So yeah. I'll go to that one.
Yeah.
All right.
Alex, what do you got?
Well, I thought you were going to move on as well.
No, what do you got?
Okay, well, we're not coordinating very well in the private chat, but so I guess moving to our next kind of thing. You mentioned earlier about being on pit crews and stuff. So originally, I was going to ask you how you got into working at Stafford and stuff, but it seems like you were doing stuff before that. So I guess kind of what's your timeline for working with guys on cars and then getting into Stafford as a crew member for the fire and safety stuff?
Well, it's going to take a little bit, so I hope you have enough time for all that.
Hey, I got all night. I don't know about Colton.
I got at least an hour. So if you can
or part two, I mean, it's up to you. I don't know if I'm that spectacular of a guest. When I got to college, I was living back up here. It was 2001. We all remember the unfortunate events of 2001. So engineering wasn't ringing my phone. It was hard to find a job. I ended up working for the Bowles family in the car business. I started selling cars. Tom Bowles has been racing since I think 1978 or 80 was when he first started racing and was still doing it. So I worked at the dealership that he was the general manager of, and my dad knew his brother Brian Bowles, who had also raced cars. He started in 1976, hence the 76 number for the team for all those years. So we started racing. I go down to the shop, doing the menial stuff, pushing the broom, cleaning the car after a race, getting the rubber out of it, while the other guys were packing bearings and doing some of the more more serious maintenance on the car. But given the general size of myself, naturally evolved into like doing over the wall and being a jackman and help doing pit stops. And we did SK races at Stafford Thompson, chased a tour for a little while. Had tour modifieds, ran some Busch North. Back then it was still Busch North, not K&N North, East, West, or whatever series they call it now. So got a lot of exposure to a lot of different types of racing early on, just with the family. Tremendous group of guys. I'm still in contact with a lot of them. I see them almost all every week working at the Speedway now. So I did that. I worked with them for a long time. Then I worked on helped out on a pit crew with Butch Shea on a Pass North, the Pro All-Star Series, late models or super late models up north. We tracks like White Mountain and all the Beach Ridge and Oxford, like ran the one up for the 250, competed against guys like Kyle Busch and Matt Kenseth. So a lot of different exposure to racing for a long time. And then I transitioned into an engineering job eventually. And that's kind of where my time as a crew member kind of ran out, unfortunately, just with the time commitment and everything. So fast forward a bunch of years, I get involved with the fire department, and a couple guys that I'm on the department with, they had been working at Stafford on the crew. One of them, unfortunately, had an accident, wasn't able to do it anymore. Unfortunately, be a firefighter or work at the track. So I kind of took his spot as the part-time guy, the sub guy that would call. I'd get a handful of races a year and go up there and do my thing on Friday night, and then the other gentleman that had got me into it, he wasn't able to do it anymore. So I kind of slid my way into the full-time spot. So it was an every week commitment, and that's been, I'm gonna guess, probably 5 or 6 years now that I've been up there working at the track. So got to see some first. I know you want to talk about some of the SRX stuff. Seeing that happen for the first time, that was really cool. See, just a lot of drivers that have came up and compete. Ryan Newman came up this year to run the Spring Sizzler, and Ryan Priest has a big background there. Doug Kobe, all those guys that made their name going through Stafford. Woody Pitcat. Yeah, it's been a great ride, and for as much of a pain as it can be, it's really a lot of fun, and I have a lot of pride in doing it. I like being out there. I like being on the helping side of things. That's part of why I'm a volunteer in the first place, and getting to parlay that into racing is just a win-win right there. Another great group of guys in the fire and safety, in the at the track there, and it's a good time on Friday nights.
I bet. There's nothing better than live racing, so I can definitely pair you there. So there's a bunch of stuff that you said. I want to kind of pick it apart, kind of bit by bit. So, firstly, I guess before we really get into kind of you, there's a thing that happens, especially in the U.S. Because it's so massive. We have these regional sports when it comes to motorsports. I've never seen a modified race. My thing has always been super late models on dirt because that's what they race down here. You got for your asphalt races, you got late models in the Midwest, and then you got 410 sprints in Pennsylvania, the Midwest, and the West Coast.
Oh, yeah.
You got pro late models in the Carolinas, which I haven't been to yet, even though I just moved up here. But I guarantee you next year I'm going to go to a lot of those races. And then up north, you got modifieds on dirt and asphalt. What is the modified culture like? What is the modified stuff like in general? And how do you think that would differ from the stuff that I see here and Colton sees out at Colorado National?
The the modifieds have a rich history in the Northeast. It's been around here a real long time, and it was born out of necessity. It was guys that wanted to go faster. So they said, let's just take some of the fenders off these things that are weighing these giant steel cars down, and we'll go faster. And poof, it was born. Of course, over time, they've been designed to be down to a race purpose chassis to be a modified. The open wheel is cool. I argue, and it's not hard to find people to back me up on this, the best race you'll ever see at New Hampshire Speedway is the modifieds. You're holding them almost wide open the entire time, through the corners, big wide tires, real low center of gravity. I would love to see them. I haven't seen them at Bristol or Martinsville, but two other tracks that are just right up modifieds alley. You can run them on a 1 mile, you can run them on a quarter mile, and you're going to get a great show. You go down to Riverhead, see them race there. It's like nothing else. You just see this. There's no ability to not see on track action. You drop the green flag and the leader's almost on the tail of the field, and in a lap or two, there's just so many cars on track, and the way they put on the race, you already touched on it. Doug Kobe, Bonsignor, the Goodales. If you step a few years back, Steve Park, Ryan Priest, Mike Stefanik, Ted Christopher. You can rattle names off all day long. And Steve Park, he made it to that level. Jimmy Spencer was a Stafford fixture. Jeff Bodine was a Stafford fixture. Ken Bouchard, Ron Bouchard, that made it to the national level and had got their starts in modifieds. It's tough, and I mean, if you're a sim racer try it out sometime. I think you'll appreciate how fast and how much grip those cars have. And it just looks so different. It's not a very traditional looking race car at all, but for what they do and the show they put on, it's difficult to beat, good modified racing. And I'm a little biased because I did grow up with it. So
Yeah.
So
I mean, that's like me. I've always wanted to go see a 410 Sprint stuff, but I hold those super late models to my heart because they've always put on great racing down here.
yeah, they do. They absolutely do. I mean, Snowball Derby, and it was later on in my quote unquote my racing career that I started getting more appreciation for the grassroots stuff, and seeing those like the Winchester at Hickory, and all those different types of short tracks, and all the names that came from those series that became big stars. Dick Trickles, Mark Martin, used to go and just clean up those racetracks. Just so cool, short track, big wide car, big horsepower. It's something I have to watch in the archives, but it's certainly worth it because late models are cool. 410s are cool. I got to see them at Lebanon Valley, which isn't too far from here. I've seen both the World of Outlaws and the All-Star Circuit of Champions, and that was tough to explain to people what those things are like in person for the first time. Just unbelievable blazing speed and just amazing amounts of courage. I got the chance to drive a dirt sprint wing car once. I thought I was going a million miles an hour, and when my friend showed me the video, I don't even think I had it out of like idle. So yeah, I thought I was just killing it out there, and no, I most certainly was not.
So I'm a big modified guy. Modifieds aren't as huge of a culture out here, obviously, but we do have several divisions of them out. And we actually just a couple weeks ago, we had a guy named Jordan Smith on who races modifieds down just north of Denver at Colorado National Speedway. So I always have a huge respect for him. You mentioned Ryan Preece. I think Ryan Preece is one of the best talents in all of the country right now as far as race car drivers go. I've said for years that I think he could be easily like a 30, 40 win cup driver if he were to get good equipment young enough in his career to start rattling off these wins. I think he's super talented. I want to know, super modifieds are the craziest thing I've ever seen in person.
They are.
By far. Have you ever been to a super modified race, or when was the last time you went?
The last time I saw supers in person was at Thompson. Thompson Speedway, for those that don't know, is a 5/8 mile, fairly decently banked track. The last time we were there, I think, was with a tour. They had these Super Tuesdays, these like modified Mania Tuesdays or stuff, and we would get to race with the supers. The first time I experienced them, we were in the infield. They kept us in the infield while they practice. They don't have starters, so you got to go, push them off. So it's a little bit of a, there's a little minutia involved in getting those things going. But once they are going, it's another thing that I can't describe. Watching the wings on top, they, as I learned over time, that they set them almost on like a door opener. So you go into the corner, these big giant wings pop up. You get all this downforce. It's a huge offset car. I mean, gigantic right rear tire, and they absolutely fly. So, I mean, for figure's sake, if we were there in the modifieds, in the SKs, or in the tour modifieds, to say we ran like an 18.0, that was like a blistering lap. And these guys are going around there in like 15, 16. I mean, seconds faster around a 5.
Whoa. Okay, so for anyone who doesn't know how big a 5/8 mile is, that's Iowa, I believe, is a 5/8 mile.
Yeah, I think it is.
So you're talking about going sub 20 seconds in a modified,
easy.
And you're going. Yeah. Say that number one more time because I don't believe it.
Yeah, honestly, like I think there were 16s going around there.
16 seconds.
Yeah, they
quarter of a minute on a 5/8 mile. Man. Holy shit,
Alex!
They're hard. I mean, again, I can't do it justice. They're big block alcohol. The best thing about those cars is those guys race. You cannot touch in those cars, or you're going to have an extremely bad. Johnny Benson took a real bad lick in a super. Great to see him, survive that and recover and still be racing from that. Up here, if you want to talk about super modifieds, the man you're going to look for in YouTube is Bentley Warren. He was an absolute legend of the series. This year, I'm gonna sort of fast forward on you, Alex. I'm sorry. As I was walking out of the track this year from New Hampshire, I see this old dude in front of me just kind of hobbling his way through the tunnel, and he turned his head, and I said to myself, "Oh my God, that's Bentley Warren." So I called out to him. He turned around and said, "How do you know who I am?" I said, "You were on the Dale Jr. download. You've only won every super modified race there is to win. Oswego, where they run those things. Arundel, Maine, where they did the Lost Speedways episode. All those tracks around here. If you're talking about supers, you got to look up at Bentley Warren. But those cars are just unreal to see in person."
Yeah. Yeah, Alex, before I move out there, if you don't go see a super race, you and Myra need to fly out here first weekend of May when they come to town. And like, holy shit. And he's not joking when he says seconds faster. Like, it is
seconds
noticeably faster, like crazy fast. And it is
check it out.
It is crazy seeing the wings open up on the straightaway and then slam back down in the corner. Oh man, they are something.
Wait a minute. Hold on. So I thought that's what I heard Matt say.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah,
they're moving. They go down and come up.
So, yeah, they're
so
actually
they basically have DRS on the
yeah, that's exactly
Holy
it.
shit.
They're set on hydraulics, yeah. So when the air hits them enough, it pulls it open and then it drops it down the corner to sit the car down.
That's fucking wild.
Yeah, they are. They're something to see. And I didn't believe it the first time. I was like, wait, that thing just moved on top. No, wait, it couldn't have. It's got to be fixed, like a 410 Sprint. Nope, that thing's popping up and laying down. So, yeah, if you get the chance, see them.
If you get the chance, research Tim Richmond's super modified, because they actually built a super mod with 3 massive tires on the right side and 1 on the left.
Oh yeah, you could do those run with your brung days, the open shows.
Yep.
They'd have those here at Stafford, and that was something that Jeff Bodine and the Bodine family used to just crush him on. On the download they call it the innovations, right? There's a lot of innovations that came from the Bodines and just in general. But yeah, some of those run with your brung shows, they were insane. Looked like some of those hill climb cars from like Pikes Peak and stuff.
Yeah,
the wings on them.
Man, I'm gonna be going down a rabbit hole later tonight. Thank you guys for letting me in on a little secret of motorsports I didn't know about. Wow. All right. So part 2 of breaking down that long answer to the question earlier. You said you were working on crews. And you did stuff like the Busch North and stuff. So first question is, did you go to New Hampshire before it was New Hampshire? I can't think of the name for the road course that they paved over. No. And secondly, what was your, I guess, favorite part of being on a pit crew?
Best part about being on a pit crew is the guys that you work with. Racing is awesome, but the people you work with, that's like I said, I have lifetime friends from that time. And being out there, being a part of, the driver get the spotlight, but after being down ground pounding with on pit road and going through pit stops and just the maintenance back at the shop, you are putting this car together. So what you do has a direct output of how that race goes. We just talked about it with Daniel Suarez. If your pit crew performs at a high level, your track position is going to be better. You're going to be better. So it is an immeasurable, and you're seeing it now with these guys that are, announcing their contract deals as pit crew members for Joe Gibbs and for Stuart Haas and that kind of stuff. It's, if I was a little bit younger, it's probably something I would have gone to pursue. Maybe make a career out of working on race teams or working on pit road. But that's the best part is doing a pit stop and nailing one and feeling good about it, and working with the guys you work with. That's the stories you tell are mostly from off the racetrack than on the racetrack. So that's.
Is there any good stories? I know Colton's probably wanting to know if there's any good stories that are able to be told on air.
There are so many that I can remember. one that we laugh about was the road trip that we took down to Nazareth when we ran the tour there in a combo weekend with the Bush South. The a lot of that I a lot of that I can't tell probably on there, but yeah, some of the road trips, we took a road trip all the way up to Lake Erie Speedway, which is one of the coolest racetracks I've ever seen. Just felt like forever and a day to get there. So yeah, a lot. I mean, I couldn't honestly remember all the stories, but you make them with your friends. You make them at the racetrack. Um, rainouts. The first rainout that we had at that I can remember at New Hampshire with the modifieds. The Cup was going out to run time trials, and Jamie McMurray came over and sat down and had a conversation. And that's when I learned that these guys aren't these up on a pedestal type celebrities. A lot of them are pretty cool and will come over and just talk like normal human beings. And so that was cool. There's a lot of memories with that, with just being in the infields and kind of mixing it up here and there, and getting to meet different people. That was a lot of fun. That's always been fun.
All right. I gotta ask with that, because you said there's a lot you couldn't share. Our other host Nathan, he did want to ask you what the wildest thing. So I'm gonna keep prying until you give me something. So what was the wildest thing that you've seen in a racetrack?
Wild good or wild bad?
Wild, your call. Wild both.
So, not to darken this whole entire episode, but I was at the 01 500 when Dale Sr. unfortunately lost his life. I was around New Hampshire for both Adam Petty and Kenny Irwin. I wasn't at the track, but I was around. Unfortunately, John Blewett, his accident. So I've seen a fair share. And Tom Baldwin, we were involved in that race. Tommy Baldwin Sr., when unfortunately he passed. So I've seen the good and the bad of racing. Racing highs, there's no highs, but the racing lows are ones that they stick with you for a long time. And it's the being Teddy Christopher, Mike Stefanik, the past. It's those are the things that really stick with me. A lot of awesome memories, but those ones, I'm glad the good came of the injuries that they were, Hans devices, safer barriers, all different types of things that they've innovated for safety. But you lose those those people. They're larger than life, and it reminds you that racing, while it's an incredibly fun sport, it can bite back at times. So those are probably the most wild things that I've seen. It's tough to comprehend when it happens in the moment. It still feels like a race. It still feels like you're just there for a race weekend. But when you go back and reflect on it, you really realize how delicate that things can be, and why you do the things you do to ensure that drivers go out there and have the safest environment they can to race. Because any little thing can be, the difference between a real good day and a real bad day. So there's my wild for you.
Yeah, well, I think most of those you weren't working for, right? You were just fans.
Fan for, a couple of them I was, we were competitors, and for some of them I was, in the fan role.
Okay, so I did want to ask, what are you doing? Kind of your fire and safety stuff at Stafford now. I did want to ask, and since you took us down this road, I guess I'll go.
Good.
I guess, what are some of the defining moments? Well, you kind of already answered that with some of the tragedies you've witnessed. How does something like that, reflecting on it, affect you mentally going forward? And if you were there, working, if you had ever been in an accident like that, working at the track for the safety stuff, how are you affected by it?
it's different for everybody. Everybody's answer. If you asked every person in safety from nationwide, they'd all have a different version of it, right? So, in the moment, it's a little bit more compartmentalized. You kind of put it to the side of the job you have to, because you got to do that first. You've got to try and take the emotion out of it. And does that always happen? No. Sometimes the emotion is still is there. But you've got to just, number one, you got to keep yourself safe. So don't put yourself in a bad spot. The bad spot's already happened. Don't make it worse. And don't get yourself hurt. Don't get your crew hurt. Don't get anybody else in a bad way based on whatever it is that you're going to respond to right now. So you do the job, and then afterward, it's more or less like most guys will say, like, the peer kind of counseling. You'll talk about it afterward. You'll say, man, I can't believe this happened, and man, thinking back on it, man, maybe we should have done it this way or that way. And it's if you ever go into a first responder environment after a bad call, it's going to sound like we are the most heartless people on the planet. But the way we talk about things, and maybe some of the humor that we share just internally, just with the people on that call, is how you get past it. And if it goes further than that, then you got to go seek, the professional help. A lot of things. One thing that I talked to, and and we're going to touch on this later again. One thing that when I got a chance to meet Mike Davis, said that the download really means a lot, because it was so amazing for Dale to be the first person, not the first person, but a very prominent person to say, it's okay to not be okay. Head injuries are nothing to ever mess with. I'm not glad to see where Kurt is right now, but I'm glad to see that they take this seriously enough where they want to be there tomorrow and not put themselves in a position where they're going to get hurt even further. So I think that's a big thing. But for us, it's a peer network. We're going to talk about it afterward, and we'll talk about things that went well. We'll talk about things that didn't go so well, and it's a learning experience for next time. Hopefully there isn't a next time, but inevitably that's just the name of the game. So there's always something that can be improved upon. We'll try and learn from it, and the best outcome is seeing that person involved, that driver, whomever it is. You see him a couple weeks later and go, hey man, how you feeling? And they like a pat in the back, like, man, I can't believe what you guys did for me, did for even just saving a race car that you didn't have to cut apart, to put back into the trailer or something. Little things go a long way, and being part of that is very, it's a very rewarding experience.
All right. Well, that was a lot. You dumped a lot. I did ask the big question, so it's my fault. I did want to get into your job as a fire safety trainer as well. We don't really have time because we went other ways and we've got other things that we wanted to talk to. But what I was going to do once we got to this part of the podcast, was ask you, is there anything that we, as just normal civilians, Colton, myself, everyone listening, can take what you've seen? I mean, as a race fan at a racetrack, as far as safety goes, but also applying, real world stuff to our own lives to help us be more safe in instances that we would normally not want to call you for.
Yeah, that's another multi-leveled answer, but there is a lot that you can do, in the community to help the community. If you're ever walking around and sometimes people ask, what does a heart safe community mean? It means that in every, government or municipal building, there's going to be an AED. Go learn how to do CPR. Go learn how to do an AED. Those are things that can have a huge difference on the outcome of someone who experiences an unfortunate, event of cardiac arrest. For people mostly call it heart attack, but survivability starts with people getting involved and wanting to help. If you can get that training through, the Red Cross, from your local fire departments, even the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts are learning these basic skills for first aid, CPR, AED use. Situational awareness, that's another one. Be aware of your environment. Everywhere you go is not designed to be safe for you.
Right.
You talk about, like, if you live in Florida, you have to be prepared for hurricanes. If you live in the plains, you got to be prepared for tornadoes. If you live, in Puerto Rico, you have to be ready for the floods, that come along with hurricanes and stuff. So no matter where you are, you have some natural, quote unquote, threat around you. The more you prepare yourself, and it sounds very cliche, but the more that you take an active role in your safety, the better off you're going to be. Have your flashlights, have your candles, have your, spare water and stuff, have your safe places to go. Those small things honestly go a long way, really do.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess just safety conscious mind leads to
I'm
safety, obviously.
getting CPR certified only takes a few hours.
It
Yeah.
does. Yep.
It's a class.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Something I highly recommend to everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I guess also with people that move around too. Like if I were to go to Wyoming right now, I would not know how to deal with what you deal with out there with 40 below and 90-mile-an-hour winds. So yeah. So I mean that's great. Kind of want to move back into some stuff. So this is the part that I think I was most forward to looking forward to when talking with you, and that is you've been around racetracks a lot, and you've been around racing personalities a lot. So I do want to get into that. So first off, let's start with Stafford. That's probably where you're spending most of your time nowadays. I want to know what the weekly racing scene is like up there. Who are the guys that you think that we should be looking into as maybe blossoming into a national spotlight kind of person to be kind of like the guys in the past that you mentioned, like Ryan Preece?
There's it's kind of that's even a tough question, because Stafford even goes all the way down to the competitive kart level. So you got all the way down to, I think it's 4 and 5 years old is when they can start racing in the Monday night. God, I'm going to forget the sponsor. Wild Thing Kart Series. God, I would hate to get that wrong. The Wild Thing Kart Series, where they have 5-6 divisions of karts all the way up to adult racers, and they put on a heck of a show on Monday nights on the mini mile there at Stafford Speedway. Then you get into your Friday night racing. You're running your 5 divisions, your street stocks, your limited late models, SK lights, and SK races, and that's every Friday night. So you've got 5 divisions minimum competing on a Friday night, which is a lot. I mean, for the race directors, for the competitors, for the track, that's a lot to support. You're running heat races, you're running feature races, you're running practice, and any of those times, you need fire and safety present for that. And also our recovery team, the guys that run the records, they do a great job. I've been to a lot of tracks, and I'm not going to say we do it the best, but we do it pretty darn good. Getting ourselves back to green, getting a good raceable surface, getting if unfortunately a car has a incident with the Armco barrier, getting Armco repaired. It shows when you've got a group of guys that have worked together for a couple of years, and you can make those things happen. Because the last thing you want to do is keep the fans sitting there doing nothing, right? They want to see you racing. They paid to see you racing.
Right.
You want to put racing on the track. So the ownership takes a very active role there. Mark Arute, David Arute, Paul Arute. They're if we're out there doing something, next thing you know, you see 2 kids running up in their fire suits because they're racing that night and they're taking care of the track. And then Mark himself is out there, side by side with us if we're just sweeping up Speedy Dry or doing something like that. So it's tough to not want to put in the effort when you have the effort being put in next to you, by the guys that could just sit back and watch it happen. They pay people to do this, but they're out there doing it too. That's it's rewarding. And then the paddock area, it's got a good buzz on Friday nights. It's coming back. You're seeing better crowds. You're seeing better car counts. Great on track action. All 5 series. I mean, you're seeing championships coming down to the final 1-2 races of the season. Really, it is a tremendous racing product that gets put on Friday nights. I'm biased to it, and maybe I'm also just lucky to be there.
Yeah,
It's something that a local race fan, even like you said, your core race fans, if you really want to go someplace and see some history of racing, go to these short tracks. Go see where the stars of tomorrow are coming out. You look up and down the ranks of the points championships just finished up. The seasons are over now. You could take the top 10 drivers out of all those series and say, that's someone to keep an eye on. Not whether they have aspirations or the financial ability to go on to the next level. That's usually, you already said that. That's where, the dream ends for a lot of people, is not being able to buy your way into a ride. At that level, you don't just have Rick Hendrick sitting in the stands saying, man, that kid did good tonight, I'm going to fire him a contract.
Yeah.
You got to pay your dues. One thing I respect about Ryan Preece is he built race car. He builds his race cars. He's paid his dues. He's worked his way through the ranks. Guy fights for every race that he's in. He's had success this year with the truck. He's had success in the Xfinity Series. He's had some success at the Cup levels. So, who is the next one from the Speedway that's going national? I couldn't pick just one. There's handfuls of people that could definitely have the talent to go to the next level. Do they have the backing? That's always going to be, the definitive yes or no. So, a lot of good. I mean, every race is not just watching, Keith Rocco win every week. You're not just watching, Woody Pitkat win every week. You're there seeing a lot of different. You get your repeat winners. There's guys that just got it figured out. They got fast cars, got a great setup, and going out there and putting it to them. But you're not going to see somebody win 10, 15 races. You're going to see a good mix of people. Some guys are just going to hit it. It's going to be their night. Maybe it's your night where you save tires and you got, 4 fresh ones to put on, and the other guys are running, a week or 2 week old tires. And, a lot of people don't realize that there's tire shortages. You're limited for what you can get at a lot of short tracks now. So tire rules come into play. Every level that these guys compete at, and to see what they do to turn the cars over. And I've been a part of it, turn a car over in 1 week's time to go and be competitive again, chasing a points championship. It's a lot. It's a lot. And, these guys that do it week in and week out, that run multiple tracks. So if you're running Friday, Saturday, and you're running Friday, Stafford, Waterford, Saturday, if you got a car that you run at those tracks and you tear it up, you're going back to the shop. These guys are clipping them in a night. It's incredible how these guys, they got a few dedicated people on their teams, and it's awesome. It really is awesome to see a car that you saw in a crumpled up like a soda can, and you see it the next week out there running at the front. My hat's off to those guys, because I know what it looks like and feels like in those late nights to put a car together.
Yeah. Wow.
Man, this guy keeps dropping just suitcases on us.
I know, man.
It's
it's like I've prepared this much notes. Matt comes in here and it's way over here.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, how am I supposed to follow up?
You're giving us too much content, Matt.
Yeah.
My fault.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good problem.
It is a good problem to have.
Honestly, I love, sitting down talking racing. So, if there's other opportunities to come in and talk racing, I'll be happy to, as events go on, or as there's places that I've gone to recently that they want to talk about, I'm always good with that. But no, I'll let you. I know you had some other stuff, Alex, that you really wanted to hit. So go ahead.
Yeah. So the one thing. Now, I still don't understand Colton's point of view on the series, but Superstar Racing Experience. I had the ability to go watch it at Five Flags this year. It was incredible. Got to see some of my favorite race car drivers from all different series competing together. I got to see my boy TK racing again, and that was astonishing. And, of course, Elio got the win, and hopefully we'll see him in a Daytona 500 now. But cool. You have been a lot more intimate with SRX series than we have. because you got to work fire and safety for those events. But also, you're at one of the 2 racetracks that they've been to both seasons. So you've gotten to see, I think, probably 18 to 20 different race car drivers. Who were the ones that you got to speak to, and what was your favorite part about the SRX experience?
So when I first heard the rumor that SRX, was going to be a thing and it was going to be backed by Ray and Tony Stewart, it was destined to take off in a big way. Those aren't guys that do things small. So, if you can look back and just look at all the accomplishments of those two and the ideas that they had, formulated for what the series was going to be, bringing back an IROC style race to short tracks. And, that's number one, super appealing to me. But to answer your question, when they announced that Bill Elliott was going to be a driver there, I was through the moon excited. Whether or not I was going to be an employee working at the race, I was going to that race. There was no way I was going to be denied getting my chance to finally shake hands with Bill Elliott. He was incredibly gracious, incredibly forthcoming. I told him that I'm actually looking at his 1987 Thunderbird right up there on the shelf, and that's the centerpiece of most of my die-cast collection. I told him I've been following him since roughly 84, 85. His career all the way through ownership, Junior Johnson, Evernham Motorsports, getting the win at the Brickyard. It's just such a cool, incredible career that he's had, and for how humble he was, just being able to talk a little racing and let me be a fan. Just let me be a fan that's meeting his idol and take a picture real quick. He couldn't have honestly been any nicer. So that was, like I said, if I didn't get to work the event, it would have been worth it to me to be able to see, stand in that autograph line and finally, get a face-to-face just to say one time, hey man, I'm one of your biggest fans of all time. And I know they hear that all the time, but from the little guy perspective,
it's good from our point of view.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, huge. So huge. I've played as Bill Elliott in NASCAR racing on the PC. I've played as Bill Elliott in the Nintendo game. So yeah, that was huge. And then you look up and down the roster of drivers, you could argue that all of them are the best of what they've done. I couldn't have picked and said, oh, he's the best at this, he's the best at this, they're the best at that. No, their resumes far preceded their their appearances. Julio Castroneves is fresh off of his 4th Indy 500 win. He was happy to show us the ring, that he had just won basically the week before. Another guy that couldn't have been more forthcoming with making you feel welcome there and ask questions and talk racing. And again, just be a fan. Like, I can't believe that a week ago I'm looking at you on TV and, you're putting that car in victory lane for the 4th time at Indy. Huge. Unfortunately, he had a in-race incident, but I did get to pick up a piece of the car that he graciously signed for me. So I have a piece of Ilio's car. He was so nice about it. When I asked him, I felt kind of bad. Like, hey, you can sign this piece of your car you wrecked. He said, oh, I guess I should stop littering while I'm out here. So, stories like that. It made the entire experience worth it. The fans were, there was a buzz the entire time that we were there. I've never seen the grandstand that packed. I've never seen the paddock area. There was all different, manufacturers, and they had one of Dale Senior's Northeast Motor Cars had one of Dale Senior's actual IROC cars there. So, just being able to see the race was one thing, but the stuff that was going on outside of it was just pretty darn cool. I didn't realize how much bigger I am than people sometimes. Like, I walk by Tony Kanaan and it's like a jockey, man.
Yeah.
Well, come on. Tony Kanaan is all but what, 4'11", I swear.
Well, like a Mark
you're
Martin,
over 6 foot, right?
But I could knock him over. That dude still doing triathlons and stuff, man. That's crazy. There's so many drivers, and I can't pick one and say that. Yes, I can. Bill Elliott was my favorite. Always has been. Always will be.
He was like, wait a minute.
All right,
it's,
so yeah,
it's awesome, Bill.
But I mean, the rest of the cast that has come through, Michael Waltrip, very, a lot like his personality on TV. I got to call him out because he was kind of not as nice to me once at a racetrack. So I got to call him out on that, and we made good on it. He let me try his Michael Waltrip brewing stuff, which was cool. Didn't have to do that. So all the even the media personalities got to interact. Alan Bestwick, having them come down, and he's a Northeast guy, so having him come down and talk some some area stuff, and then just being part of the race experience, like that was cool. Matt Yoakum was really cool. Really good group of people. They really have something there, and I hope that the excitement stays with the series. I hope they're able to go to more tracks and bring that experience to more people that can see their racing heroes up close. I think that was I just think that's one of the coolest ideas, to put these drivers all in a super similar setup car, super similar engine horsepower, and on short tracks. Let them go out there and race. I mean, that's what people want to see. You want to see them go out there and race. Put the bumper to them. Love them or hate them. You see Paul Tracy out there, you're going to get the bumper at some point when he's on the racetrack. So, I know they don't want to tear him up week to week, because I will tell you, those are some of the hardest working crews. I mean, they're working on the road. They're rebuilding cars on the road. They don't have a shop. They don't have. They're rolling. They're in the back of. They're in parking lots. They're working under pop-up tents. All the people that make SRX happen, they get a serious tip of the cap from me, because they are working their literal tails off for 6 weeks, racetrack to racetrack, put the cars together, fix them, maintain them, put them back on the track, and give a competitive car to all these drivers. Seriously, impressive achievement by that series.
Yeah. Are you convinced yet, Colton, to watch it?
You're gonna put me in this spot.
I'm gonna put you on the spot right now. It's racing.
I don't know. Maybe I'll give it a watch.
Okay. Yeah, it was one of the greatest races I've ever seen on at Five Flags this year. So I'm glad that I got to experience it as well.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll come to Colorado National one of these days. And you'll be able to see it.
If they come out to Denver, I will be the first guy in line buying tickets. And no question about it.
You just said it, so now you got to make good on it.
Yeah. Well, if they announce it, I promise, and I'll buy you guys tickets too if you want.
I'll be there.
So yeah, I think the thing you said about them continuing, I think the model only continues if they do make the schedule different every year. Because you got to put the nuance out there, because Five Flags was packed to the brim. I'm not sure if Five Flags was on the original season. People would go out again because it was blistering hot. My ass literally got burnt from the concrete. I don't know that you can replicate that year after year. But no, it's really fun. But that's not really the only stuff you've been to. You did work at Loudon. You've been to Loudon a lot. I kind of want to save that for a next time. I don't think there's a lot of stuff that we didn't get to. I think we want to have you on again. Sure. But we do want to get to the thing that we teased on Twitter, and that was you got to meet the guys that kind of paved the way for podcasts like us in the motorsports world. You went to the Dirty Mo Media Fan Experience at Bristol.
I did.
Let's go overarching. How was that? And let's get into all the specifics.
All right. So truth be told, I didn't watch or get into the wasn't into the Dale Jr. download in some of the beginning. I didn't know much about the door bumper clear in the beginning, but during the pandemic, when they started doing the live commentary on the iRaces, I happened to flip it on and said, man, these are my kind of guys right here. I want over the top, opinionated, but industry guys. They're not offering opinion just based on pulling stuff out of a hat. These are people that have been. When I got a chance to meet Freddie, I said, hey, we were competitors back in the day at Stafford. So we got to talk a little bit about that. And then I got to meet Brett. He came through the pit. I had Landon Castle's pit for the Xfinity race, this last one at New Hampshire. And so that was cool. And yeah, I know we'll save the other part of that for that later, Alex. But the Ultimate Fan Experience, what a product from Dirty Mo Media. It was really incredible to go and have those guys be so cool to sit there and just let fans come at them and barrage them with questions. And Mike Davis himself, he's Dale's right hand man in the download, and the now president of Dirty Mo Media as a company. So they couldn't have been any easier to talk to. Any misconception I had about that was instantly dispelled once I walked into that studio. They were just milling around watching a race. They wanted, well, some of them had work to go do eventually, but Mike stayed in that booth from start to finish, and he engaged with every single person in there. Not just a, hey, how's it going? Thanks for coming out, shake your hand and move on. He had a legitimate, conversation with every single, he wanted to know who you were, where you were from. How did you get into racing? Why do you like this? Thank you. Yes, of course. Thank you for coming to the experience, but how can we make it better? What do you like about this? What don't you like about this? And took a lot of that, constructive criticism. And I said, for a guy who is not a traditional talk show host, they do a heck of a job on the download, getting people to open up, getting, I said one that really kind of touched me was the Kenny Schrader interview when they talking to Junior about, being the first one to see his dad in the race car, and never letting that out, never letting out what he saw. That was something, if Junior ever wanted to know, he could know. And if not, it was going to stay under wraps. And I respect that. Obviously seeing what I've seen in my time, that, you have family members that have probably passed. You want to remember them the way that they were. You don't want to remember them in their worst days. You want to remember them in their best days. So that was amazing. I already touched on the head injury thing that Dale came out and, made it okay to not be okay with the head injury. They've touched on a million times. If you got out of a race car, there's someone behind you to fill that seat. Are you going to get your seat back? You don't know. If you're making a living in racing, you got to be in the car week in and week out. How many stories have you heard of Ricky Rudd with his eyes taped open, or these crazy stories from back in the day that there was no way they were not going to race their car the next week, no matter how bad they were hurt. So the experience at Bristol was just it's just a mecca. If you're, for all those years that I thought I'd never see the Bristol night race because I was going to be on a wait list for 30 years to get a ticket to even see it, but then get to go see it from a suite was a no-brainer. I mean, I didn't care if I had to go out and start, panhandling on the street. I was going to find a way to get into the into the experience, and it was everything that I thought it could be. So the one thing that I got to get into, Alex, about New Hampshire was the chance to meet Dale Jr. quickly. He took my picture on his phone. Now, I'm not going to ask, because he's going to send it to Mike Davis. Now, I'm not going to ask Dale Jr. to send me that picture. I'm not going to have Dale Jr.'s number in my phone. I just thought it was a cool moment. He was super cool about it. So I asked Mike, I said, hey, I was that guy at New Hampshire that Dale sent you a picture. And he said, hold on. He scrolled all the way back through his texts and said, oh, here it is, and sent it over to me. So now I have that picture. I have that memory that I can save. In talking, I was actually wearing the shirt and talking about, working up at Stafford, and it said, kind of jokingly, like, I get a lot of airtime from all the wrecks on Flow TV. You can see my helmet. I'll be happy to I have a Couch Racer sticker up there, and I'll put the Dirty Mo sticker on there too. And he said, yeah, absolutely. So when I get back, send me a message and I'll send it up to you. So a couple days go by and a package arrives at my house. Some package, like, man, did I get like every sticker ever made? I thought I was going to get like an envelope.
Yeah.
So I open up this box, and in the box is a signed, get right up there.
Oh, yeah.
Signed by Dale Jr. himself. This was not something I asked for, but what an amazing, just genuine thing to have sent me. Now, what didn't come were the stickers.
Oh,
So, so I sent another message and I said, man, I can't believe that I got a signed bottle of High Rock, but I didn't get the stickers. So I got an email from the assistant. They made right by, this is a guy that doesn't need some nobody, bothering him all the time, but he made good on the promise. I got this bottle that, will stay. I did, side note, I did buy some High Rock earlier in the year when I went down to Tennessee. It is fantastic. But this one's staying sealed and put away. But the entire experience, Freddie, Brett, TJ, super, super great guys. Love the show. I love honest opinions. That's why I love the Door Bumper Clear so much. I know that it's it's pushed the line a couple times, but I'm here for it. That's the kind of honest opinion I'm looking for in racing. I can get the high level headlines, but when you really want to get, and I'm not going to say the insider opinion, but guys that that have done this for a number of years and a number of different race teams and a number of different levels. Hearing TJ's story, hearing Brett's story, I love the activation side. I didn't know hardly anything about like the sponsor side of things and the business stuff that he gets into. Freddie calls it straight, and the Bubba thing's been, of course, blown out of proportion this week with him and Kyle Larson, but it's really cool to see someone say, hey, when my guy's good, he's good. When my guy's bad, he's bad. And, I'm all for any time that there's an honest, an honest opinion being given. I can't love it anymore. It's something that, sets my week. On Tuesdays, I listen to the Bumper Clear. On Wednesdays during work, I listen to the download, and that's every week.
Yeah. Well, our other host, Nathan, he's the one that started the podcast with me. I had this thought way back in 2016, but we didn't act on it until last year. We basically based our stuff around what wanting to do what Dale Jr. does with industry people, but with fans. And so that's why we get people like you to come on here and share your stories and stuff like that. So I hope that we've achieved similar level because you're like a Kenny Schrader or a Denny Hamlin or a Tyler Reddick to us in our version of what we want to do of basically the fan junior download. And then the DBC guys kind of I did want to bring this up. Somebody joked, I think it was Cody Powers or maybe it was Dalton Good from Left Turn Cult. They posted a meme that said host of podcasts, and it's always a fat guy with a beard, the redneck, and the stats guy. And we've got all three of that. Fat guy with the beard, the redneck, and then Nathan, our stats guy. And it's just like DBC, and it was just hilarious. So it all comes full circle. We're massive Dirty Mo fans. Obviously, I'm decked out in merch. I got the Sundrop hat and the what the fuck does Kyle Petty have to do with it shirt. So
one of the greatest lines of all time.
Yeah.
Right. I am so envious of you. First of all, going to the Bristol Night Race, and secondly, of getting to do it like that. So I appreciate you taking us through all that. I think Colton's got some questions about that as well.
Yeah, hang on. I was spacing out for a minute. I was trying to read.
You said you were all set in the chat.
Oh no, I mean I'm all
set. With my story and blew you out.
Oh, okay.
I'm all set. I'm good. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm enjoying my week off from hosting. So.
That's okay. You do a great job every week when I'm not here. I'm sorry that my job has gotten in front of our little project here. But it has been a hell of a good 2 hours. We got some stuff from fans. This is Cheyenne. It's your now fiance,
yes.
Colton.
Yep.
Guys have to get Matt on again. I could listen to his stories all night. These are great. I think all she's doing is echoing what Colton and I are thinking.
Yeah.
It's been fantastic. We didn't get into the iRacing stuff. We didn't get into the ins and outs of your jobs. We didn't get into stuff you've seen at Loudon. So we've got a part 2 ready whenever you are. But the second hardest question I ask everybody, I start with the first and I end with the last, is do you have any genuine questions for us before we leave?
Again, you got to put me on the spot. Yeah, no, the
That's
first
the
one.
point. That's the point, man.
Oh, man. First one, those are easy questions. Talking about things you've done, I mean, that's the easiest thing there is. Now, for you guys, I guess the question would be, where do you see yourself going with this? Do you want to expand the podcast? Do you want to, get to the point where you got, drivers and, national level? I'm not saying it's got to be the Cup, Xfinity, or, Camping World / Craftsman truck drivers. Local people, local drivers, just trying to put themselves and their names out there. We've talked about so many different series of racing. Everybody's looking to get their, a little brand logo time on screen. It doesn't matter, big, small, middle, indifferent. When you're out there and you're putting yourself out there, you get noticed. And if you're putting the on-track action to get yourself noticed and you do a little bit of the behind-the-scenes stuff, like how many people are Tyler Reddick fans now because he's opening up and being like this, cool, funny dude?
Yeah.
So if you guys are looking to expand that, then I guess that'd be my question. Are you looking to go, take a step in a different direction?
Well, I mean, we've already had plenty of guys. We've had dirt guys on here. We've had Xfinity guys on here. Awesome. My biggest goal is for myself personally is consistency. And that is making sure that we've got everything out on all our modes each week and not just letting the excuse of my schedule is shit get in the way of getting stuff out. I'm very proud of where we've come in the short year and a half that we've been doing this. We have 5 guys on tap to be hosts every in our rotation. We've got the content. It's getting it to the people and getting people to watch. That's the goal is making that broader spectrum.
Sure.
Because I know as a unit, our 2 base types of shows where it's reactionary or interviews like this one, we are the gold standard. And I will confidently say that. But when it comes to marketing ourselves, getting our name out there, or as far as me editing and everything like that, where the bar is 15 foot of where we are right now. So that for me that's my goal.
Colton? Well, I think, like I did with a download and Door Bumper Clear, in the off season, I went back and listened to all the ones that I hadn't listened to before. So now I'm going to do the same with this. I'm going to go back and listen to past episodes and, catch people on here with different stories to tell and different perspectives on things. And, take that all as, just racing information. Is, like you said, we're all fans. We're all racing fans of, in one way, shape, or form. So we're all in this big, giant fraternity of people because we all have a passion for the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess more folks like yourself. Like Alex said, the Dale Jr. Download does a great job of highlighting the industry leaders and some of the legends of NASCAR. But, we kind of want to get into the smaller folks who have, a million different stories about, getting a picture taken on Dale Jr.'s phone or Owen Kearns saying that he just kind of bluffed what was at the time the closest finish in NASCAR history and made up a number about it. So like some of those stories are pretty damn cool. I'd really just like to get more of those out. Regardless of, obviously the goal is to get a good audience and not have to have a day job.
Obviously, but
all in all, if 20 years later we look back on it and all I got was 1.5 million good racing stories out of it.
I can tell you, for me personally, what we're doing is working on the content side, like I said. But what I'm most proud of is having for whoever else comes on here, something to look back on and say, okay, I can show this to other people and they can see where I'm coming from, stuff like that. Recently, we lost the World of Outlaws Dirt Late Models announcer, Rick Eshelman. He was a big part of my life. He was a big part of my dad's life. We had him on here probably 2 or 3 weeks after he was announced to be going into the National Dirt Late Model Hall of Fame. And we just sat down for an hour and a half, 2 hours, just like we are right now, and talked about stuff no one would ever know about, from personal stories, from stories with me and my dad in them. And I know now that somebody can know Rick without knowing Rick, because we've put out Rick's personality, and that's what. And you know, you see Mike Joy every Sunday or whatever, but and to an extent, Rick Eshelman's name was known. But when I say Matt Yost to anybody, they're not going to know who you are.
Nope.
And that's no like dig on you, but now they're going to have a perspective of this guy from Connecticut who's got a familial past in flying, who's putting basically engine programs into our fighter jets, is also going and having fun doing the same thing that we do. So it's kind of like this big encompassing circle.
I'll tell you what, the next time you'll get to you get the story of how I got the nickname the Donkey. That's
right.
That's actually a pretty good story.
I'll hold you to that.
We're gonna have to do that. So I guess this is a good place to end it. We got a little bit less than 5 minutes before we cap the 2-hour mark. Colton, do we want to go ahead and try to pseudo announce what we want to do next week?
So this is still in the works. I've got one confirmed for it, but next week, I think before we get into all the championship and season recaps and the off-season stuff, while Kyle is still in the 18 car, I think we need to have a Rowdy roundup, and we need to get as many Rowdy fans on here as we can possibly hold with StreamYard, and we need to have a little Rowdy roundup. Ashton O'Neill was on our stream during the 36-hour live stream that we did. He was a fan that we met down in the pits of Atlanta, down in the garage. He's a huge Rowdy fan. We're going to have him on. I'm going to talk to Dalton Good, see if he can't be on. So if any Rowdy fans are out there listening, we want to have you on next week to do a Rowdy roundup.
Absolutely.
And kind of a little send-off for the 18 M&M's car. I think it would be so cool to do.
Yeah. So that's basically what we're going to want to do. Roundup. I don't know what kind of Wyoming speak that is. Rowdy Roundup is what we're going to try and do next week. We can probably get those two definitely on. I'm sure my dad will want to be on there. He's a massive Kyle Busch fan. It should be fun, just kind of reminiscing over the 18 from the first win in Atlanta to whatever happens the next 3 weeks of the season. We'll treat him with a better send-off than Joe Gibbs will. So that's what we want to do. Colton will be in charge of that. I will be at work, as always. I want to thank you one more time, Matt, for coming on. It has been a hell of a show. I told people when preparing for this is probably going to be one of the top 5 shows of the year. You definitely hit that mark. We cannot wait to have you on again.
Thank you guys. Alex, like you said, we hooked up on the sim racing deal, and you get a little bit of talk in there. But I got to learn more about you, your past. Great to meet you, Colton. Great to meet more race fans, and I'll be happy to to have a round 2, 3, 10, whatever. I'm up. If it's for racing, I'm in. Sign me up.
Hell yeah! There's no way we don't do that, because this is one of the best things, and I know there's plenty more of us to talk about. As always, guys, follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at FanFuelMSM, capital F, capital MSM. We got some stuff coming in the works we told you about with next week's show at 7 p.m. Our new nightly standard, and that is for our newest host, Keith. And other than that, I think we're good for tonight. So once again, Matt, thank you for coming out, and
thanks, guys.
We will see you guys next time. All right, bye.